We are
Hello,
here.
hello. We're here, and it's Sunday.
Fun day.
And Sunday fun day. And Nettie has found another series for us to cover.
Yep. Another 3-part series.
I'm excited. I
Yeah.
really
It's a
like.
doozy. It's a good series we're going to be doing, but this time it's just on one person involved in this series.
So last time we did a town, and the town was nuts.
Yeah. Just
But
a little bit.
this one's going to be a deep dive into one person. So this should be interesting.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, let's just jump this off by saying, we send our condolences out to all of the victims that are involved in this story.
Yeah.
We do laugh throughout our way of telling these stories as a way to lighten the mood and as we deal with the chat. We're not blaming the chat. It's just the way
Yeah.
these lives tend to go. So we mean no disrespect in doing so, but that's just the way that our Sunday lives go. With that being said, we do send out our condolences to the family and all those affected by these incidences and these crimes. So we're going to jump into our story because it is going to go over. We already know that these are some very interesting yet longer parts as we get into these
Mm-hmm.
series type ones. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's jump into part one of the series. I'll let Nettie start first. Oh, wait,
Okay.
no, I almost forgot to welcome everybody.
Welcome everybody. No.
I'm sorry, I'm a little off today. I'm a little tired. It's been a long weekend for me. Let me get over here. Hitch Up and Toe had me cracking up before we even started. Hitch Up and Toe said that they need to swipe left on this one. And then I decided to tell them not only should they probably swipe left, but they should do what Dora the Explorer advises, and they should just not swipe at all. Just no swiping. No swiping because you should not be swiping at all on any of these. The head in the bucket lady, this
Right.
serial killer, just none of them. Hippie has not learned this lesson yet though, so
Oh,
but welcome Hitch Up and Toe. And then we have Tommy Travels in here. Hello and welcome. All right. And now let's jump into our story.
a farmhouse with a dark history is auctioned. What do you think about that architecture?
That architecture is scary.
John Foote came to the auction intending to take photos of his grandmother who had lived in the house when she was 12 for his grandmother who had lived in this house when she was 12 years old. He wanted to remind her of forgotten times when she danced around the 119-acre property and fed her horses, when she laid in the grass on long summer days, but when he arrived, all notions of this kind gestures for his grandmother were immediately forgotten.
Hello, the bridge, and hi, Hitman. It's so great to see you 2 weeks in a row. Hello, hello. All right. The property was in shambles, and any photo he might take would only taint her memories. Epping, a farm town in New Hampshire of 26.2 square miles, is so small that you would need less than a half gallon of gas to drive through its European style buildings. Looks like such a quaint little town.
I was trying to get the population. I don't know how many people live there, but that's all I found.
Hitman said I'd sleep there for a night.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't look like you couldn't fix it up, maybe, but The fact that it said it had a dark history, I'm more interested in hearing that part
Right.
before I
Yeah.
agree to sleep anywhere.
I got to know the facts first. It has a picturesque views of vast acres of farmlands and forests. And with only 7,000 residents, if you live there long enough, there is a chance that people will know your name. Neighbors driving by the state who once marveled at the Epping home were now horrified.
Hmm. The Cape-style piece of property was considered a luxury home. The house had a gabled roof with a large chimney right at the center. Views from upstairs windows revealed the vast acres of grass surrounding it. I had put what Bridge said up on the screen for a minute, which I 100% believe this. Small towns, big secrets. Our last series kind of covered that. The small town had big secrets.
It is very beautiful, though.
It
The
is. It's really
surroundings.
beautiful. Hey, Thin Blue Lane.
It seemed like a dream home for couples to raise kids and grow crops. Strange, then, that most of the attendees weren't bidders, but curious onlookers who would buy the ruins for the LaBarre estate.
A wellness check on Kenneth Countie. I think that's how you say that last name.
Yeah.
Sergeant Sean Gallagher received a panicky call on February 24th, 2006 at Epping PD. A voice shook at the end of the line. Carolyn Lodge was worried about her son after he left his home in Willington, Massachusetts, with an Epping resident, Sheila LaBarre. Dun, dun, dun. This is Kenneth and Caroline.
Yeah. Carolyn is his mother. She described her son as mentally deficient and hoped that the sergeant would make sure he was all right. In police parlance, a wellness check. Sean shook his head. He knew Sheila.
He had dealt with her about 24 times since 1995. He remembered breaking up several domestic disputes with various boyfriends. This would just be another encounter with her.
Carolyn had reported him missing, and after confirming that her son, Kenneth, was listed in the National Crime Information Center database, Sean and Detective Richard Cote drove their cruiser to Sheila's home on Red Oak Hill Road to find him.
The dirt road opened up to 115 acres of land, including a large home and a barn. A fence, a gate, and barbed wire blocked the entrance to the home. A no trespassing sign was nailed to a tree with the words, "You are being videotaped," written underneath it.
Sean and Richard climbed through and reached the front door, but Sheila wouldn't open it. Instead, she spoke to them through her window. Sean asked if Kenneth was inside with her, and she responded with a curt no.
The officer asked again, this time emphasizing that he was required to complete a wellness check on Kenneth. Sheila's answer changed. She finally admitted he was there. This is strange right off the bat.
Yeah. Can we see Kenneth? He asked. She refused. She told the officer that Kenneth was naked and taking a warm bath. And for a moment, there was silence behind the window.
Sean wasn't going away. Sheila left, annoyed by how relentless the officers were, and returned with Kenneth, bringing him to the front door for the gentleman to examine. Hey, Mildred, thank you so much for sharing us out. I appreciate that, and welcome to the live.
Kenneth wore nothing but blue jeans. Maybe he actually was in the bath and quickly put them on. Nothing seemed unusual. The young man looked fine to Sean, and he believed he was there on his own free will. After being asked to leave the farm, Sean and Richard drove away.
A brief history of Kenneth Countie. Kenneth Countie was a 6-foot-tall, 24-year-old with prominent eyebrows and a beaming smile. I've never ever seen him not smiling, said Kenneth's mother adoringly. Even when he was upset with him, she could never stay mad. I think that's even when she was upset with him. I don't know why my brain kept saying it the way it was. Even when she was upset with him, she could never stay mad. I tried to reread it, but my brain just kept doing the same thing.
Kenneth was an athletic kid. He played baseball and loved attending games with his dad. He enjoyed the smell of fresh cut grass and salty, warm pretzels and was energized by the loud chants of the crowd.
Aw, so cute. His drink of choice was grape soda. Kenneth played hockey and benefited because his dad coached the game. Hockey season marked the beginning of autumn, a prelude to Kenneth's favorite time of year, Christmas.
Yeah. On Thanksgiving Day, he would begin decorating his little cherry-colored tree with colorful lights and tiny ornaments. It lacked greenery, but he saw the potential in his Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
Hello, the Sand Van and Linda Barker. We have a Johnny's Journey raid coming in. Hello, everyone. But he lived for Christmas morning, jumping out of bed at daybreak and running downstairs to tear through the skeins of wrapping paper that were tucked and creased and folded and taped around a host of waiting presents. Even the occasional paper cut didn't slow him down. Then Carolyn's little boy grew up. Oh.
Kenneth was mesmerized by the characters on the screen in old Army and Western films. There was something so fascinating about being a hero who saved the day. Kenneth wanted nothing more than to join the Army, and Carolyn wasn't ready to let Kenneth leave home and become independent.
Hello, Lucky Dog.
Yeah.
Productions moderator Sue, welcome to the room. Helps if I unmute myself before I talk. She was afraid for him. She feared the kind of people he would meet. Despite his mother's apprehension, as soon as he graduated high school, he enlisted. He started basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia, but training didn't last. Oh, Johnny's Journey, that's okay. Thanks for sending the raid over. And welcome to the room.
Mhm. He couldn't complete the sit-up portion of basic training. He received a medical discharge and returned home to Valencia, Massachusetts. Crushed and downtrodden, he took a job at the car wash where he was described as a simple, dedicated worker, but struggled with even basic paperwork.
You know, even though it's describing him as simple, maybe I don't, it's
Like he was
describing him as
both.
delayed, you
Yeah,
know, it's describing him as mentally delayed. It's in the way that it's describing him and telling us about him, he is a hard worker. He's determined to get out there and live life and not just sit in a house and do nothing. You know,
right.
it's showing that no matter what, he's determined to be out there and doing something and be like, he's not just, I don't know. I admire what they're telling us his personality was. He was a go-getter.
Yeah.
And that for me seems to be something that we don't see a lot of these days in the younger generation. So I don't know. I just really admire that.
Moving out of his childhood home in January of 2006 at 24, Kenneth was trying his hand at independent living. He moved into a house just a few miles away in Wilmington, Massachusetts, with a roommate, Eric Ingram.
Yeah, them blooming, good work ethic. Yeah, and you said at least he went away. Yeah, because sometimes mothers can be, no matter if it's for good or if they're just trying to keep their kiddo at home, can be a little bit overbearing and do too much for their child. And so if a child goes away for a little bit, they can sometimes work out that kink of, you know, the parent doing too much for them, and they can become very much more so independent. But if they are on the slower scale of not being able to
Mm-hmm.
overcome that because their brain, you know, is inhabited, or inhabited's not the right word, inhibited, is that the right
Yeah.
word? I'm trying to use big words even though I'm slow. Um, but, you know, even if their brain isn't capable of that, um, I think it is good for them to try and see, you know, what's going on. So I'm listening to this story and I'm admiring this young man for taking the chances and trying to see what he could
Right.
truly do. You
Yeah.
know, I find this really admirable how hard he pushed. I don't know if anybody else that's been listening here is noticing that, but that's just something that I'm picking up throughout the story. Is he
Mm-hmm.
didn't just sit at home and go, well, I can't, you know, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hitchup and Toe said, I wish my kids would move out by 24. I got one that I don't think's ever going anywhere. So I got one that's too ambitious, and then I got another one that I think is doing just great. He's
Yeah.
doing it just like he should. So I got three that are totally different. All right. Mine moved out by 24 and came back. Like they all do it so differently. There we go. It's a nice way of putting it. You're not slow. You're linguistically inhibited. I like that. That's what I'm going to tell everybody from now on. Tommy Travel says, I'm not slow. I'm linguistically, now I'm challenged on that word.
You can't
Make
say
that
it
a
twice.
smaller word for me, please.
Even with his newfound freedom, Carolyn continued to check up on Kenneth. She periodically visited him at work and they spoke on the phone daily, but Kenneth was doing well.
he was responsible, Eric remembered that after long days at work, Kenneth would call the bank to check his balance and call his carrier to see how many cell phone minutes he had remaining. He was an easygoing roommate who was on top of things.
But underneath his enthusiasm, Kenneth was lonely. Prior to meeting Sheila, he had attempted suicide. He wanted companionship, something more than just his mother's love.
Aww.
Yeah.
Who is Sheila LaBarre? Oh, LaBarre? LaBarre.
LaBarre.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sheila LaBarre. Wait, Sheila lived on the big farm at the end of the street. She was often seen on the roads in her silver Mercedes, her professionally dyed blonde locks moving in the breeze. I will mention that when Nette sent me this story, she sent me the pictures of this lady. I had to send a thing back to Nette and say, is the one in the red dress her as well? Because I was like, she looks different in all these pictures. So when
Yeah.
I show these pictures of her, just keep in mind they're all her. She looks
Hmm.
so very different.
She was known around the community as erotic and had a habit of using guns to intimidate. Yet, she could be quite charming, and that seemed to be her key to getting whatever she wanted.
Gee, she kind of sounds familiar to our town
Sounds like
bully.
a female bully. Yeah.
Yeah. Sheila wasn't originally from Epping. She adopted her southern charm from her hometown of Fort Payne, Alabama. She even coined her own nickname, Firecracker, not only because she was a 4th of July baby, but because it suited her volatile personality. Ah, Tommy. Uh-oh, that picture is luring me in.
I think she's got a bucket, Tommy. Don't get lured in. Sheila grew up in a Baptist family with five siblings, three brothers and two sisters. Her father, Manuel Bailey, worked for the state highway department as the equipment operator, and her mother, Ruby Bailey, was a housekeeper.
The Sand Life has a really good plan. Or the Sand Van has a really good plan. That's why we're going full-time van life. They can't come back if they can't find you. They can't fit in the van either.
Yeah.
Sheila LaBarre, 2 years old, 1963. She was a cute baby.
Hmm.
Sheila and her father had issues. He came home belligerently drunk on the weekends from time to time and could become quite violent. During one incident, he overturned the cast iron stove the family used to heat the home, and in the winter months, er, used to heat the home in the winter months, and tried to topple the refrigerator. Father was a bully as well. Got
Yep.
it.
When it proved too heavy, he opened its door and began tossing the food across the kitchen. The incident escalated as the family appeared and he started throwing the food at them. They fled to the garage, huddled in the car, locked the doors, and started the engine when their father appeared.
He wound up as though to strike the driver's side window, but didn't realize it was already down. As he threw the punch, he toppled half into the car, completely off balance. His wife and two children fled on foot into a nearby cornfield. They were in a car. Why didn't they just drive away?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Maybe she didn't grab the keys when they ran to the car.
She started the car. So when he swung back to punch,
Yeah.
the car was
The
already
window was
started. Why didn't she just? Maybe she didn't know how to drive, because back then I guess the women didn't always know how to drive.
Yeah.
Hitch up and Toe said food fight.
And Tommy.
Maybe he was abused by the kitchen appliances when he was younger.
As they were escaping, he picked up a can of antifreeze and chunked it at Sheila, who was just 6 at the time. Being rushed away from the house by her mother into the night, Sheila covered her face and the can struck her finger, leaving a scar that would last a lifetime.
Hey, Timmy Ray the King. Thanks for coming in. They hid out in a cornfield on the edge of their property as Manuel stamped around trying to find them. When he gave up, they walked 5 miles in the night to stay with family while their father sobered. "9 years old, 1970. I do know that abuse back in the 70s was just kind of normal. It was, I don't know if it was normalized or if it was more like, don't talk about it. If it's happening, you just do not speak of it. It was hidden.
Yeah. In addition to the physical abuse, Sheila and her sister both said that they had been sexually molested by their father in childhood. Despite the adversity, at 18, she graduated from Fort Payne High School and was optimistic about her future. Growing up, the youngest of 6, Sheila wanted to stand out somehow and wanted to be a star. Can't hear you.
She ended up standing out.
Yeah.
She loved singing, prided herself on her looks, and dreamt of being a country musician or a model. People thought she was beautiful, with long brown locks and a youthful glow. She used her looks to compete in beauty pageants and win over the affections of men. "18 years old, 1979. Suspicious activity in a Walmart.
In March of 2006, a week or two after the wellness check for Kenneth, Sean and Richard, the 2 cops that went to Sheila's home, received a call from someone at Walmart who explained there was a person being disruptive inside of the store.
So she was like one of the first people at Walmart, huh?
Yeah.
The men hopped into their cruiser and drove down to the effing Walmart. They arrived and found Kenneth Countie inside, but he did not look the same as he did on that Sunday in February.
This time he sat in a wheelchair, hunched over, gashes covering his face and hands. His face was somewhat obscured by a fuzzy black hat. Inside of his shopping basket were 2 5-gallon yellow diesel containers. His right hand was swollen, and Kenneth could barely move it.
Jeez.
Isn't that terrible?
My Lord, he looks like a child, and like size-wise.
Yeah.
Look how big those gallons are compared to him. Those, I don't know anybody that's how familiar you are with 5-gallon gas cans, but they are not that big. They just look big compared to him. I don't know. That's shocking. Okay. Before Sean and Richard could get a question out, Sheila appeared and loomed behind him. She told the sergeant and the detective that he was fine, that his wounds were just the result of a car accident, nothing to worry about. She told them that Kenneth was sitting in the wheelchair as a joke. Looked like a joke to me.
When Richard began speaking to Kenneth, she abruptly cut him off and told Kenneth not to talk to the officers. She was loud and her language was off colored. This wasn't the first time Sheila has caused a scene inside of the store, and she had stopped there with Kenneth weeks prior.
She claimed that her, quote, husband, Kenneth, had been attacked by a woman in the store. She yelled at the employees and threatened to sue. The officers decided to follow Kenneth and Sheila to her truck parked in front of the store. It looks like gas tanks, you say, Timmy Ray? Kenneth stumbled. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Kenneth stumbled as he walked, and Sheila carried him into her truck, helping him inside. Sean and Richard watched the couple with despair. Despite the wounds and mistreatment, the two officers didn't help Kenneth. He was 24 years old. They hoped that if he was in any real trouble, he would tell them.
It's not the way that works. That makes me
Right?
so sad.
Yeah.
Sheila's first marriage to John Baxter. Sheila had a way with men. They were bewitched by her assertive nature and her captivating looks. There was something classy about the woman in red. She was malleable, coming off as polite and respectful when she needed to, and authoritative and demanding when she wanted something.
Sheila was married 3 times, plus one something
Quasi,
legal, quasi
quasi.
legal common law marriage, but each one lasted only a short time. John Baxter, her first husband, who was 19 years old when they got married, was a single father living in Fort Payne, Alabama.
Sheila's first husband, single father John Baxter, whom she married on New Year's Eve in 1981. Sheila, at 23, may have seemed like she had the potential to be a good mother and wife. The two only dated a month before getting married on New Year's Eve in 1981. John really wanted this marriage to work out. He had already gone through the heartbreak of a divorce, but it only took 6 weeks for things to take a turn. Oh.
Sheila immediately regretted marrying into their family. She didn't like playing the role of mother and wife. Her dream was to be an artist. She resented the two as a result and took out her anger on his daughter, Wendy.
Yeah, the kids did something. After coming home from his job as a utility lineman, John discovered Wendy was locked up in a room the size of a closet. Sheila was kind enough to give her a pot that she could use as a toilet. If Wendy came out, Sheila would beat her and break her toys. She threatened, "If you ever tell your daddy, I will kill you and your daddy both." It's how me say, I bet she wouldn't marry Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
I bet she wouldn't marry any man that was willing to stand up to her. It seems to me she's picking broken men.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of an abusive man that picks broken women, this is an abusive woman picking broken men.
And Winnie didn't have to say anything. John figured it out on his own. There was no way he was going to let his little girl be treated this way. And according to Kevin Flynn, author of the book Wicked Intentions, Wendy said the last thing she remembered about Sheila was her father pushing her out of the way to take Wendy out of the house.
Go, Dad, go. John left Sheila 6 weeks after their marriage, and their divorce was finalized a year later. Since Sheila was no longer being financially supported by John, she took a job at a fast food burger joint. She needed something to pay the bills, but it didn't take long for Sheila to become romantically involved with someone else. I bet that was a low point in Sheila's life.
Yep.
Her like uppity, I'm so good self having to work at a burger joint. Not that working at a burger joint is bad. Trust me, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That
just
woman.
just what she wanted for her life, and then to have to work there.
Yeah.
She met Ronnie Jennings, a co-worker whose mother owned the old-fashioned drive-in. Ronnie was very different from John. He didn't have any kids, and he dated around. He was attractive and tall, with a bit of an edge. After lending Sheila a ride home one evening, she became completely fascinated with him. They lived recklessly, skipping work and smoking weed.
She wanted Ronnie to be hers, but Ronnie wasn't interested in marriage. Though he gave most of his attention to Sheila, he still wanted to sleep around. And his lifestyle was audacious. Ronnie had allegedly become involved with an illegal business. Despite his apprehensions after finalizing her divorce, Sheila convinced Ronnie to commit.
Sheila's second marriage to Ronnie Jennings. They got married and the couple moved to Chattanooga, ready to embark upon their new life together. But Ronnie almost immediately knew he had made a mistake. As soon as they left their wedding ceremony, Sheila began sobbing, saying they should have never gotten married. Cray cray.
Woman's nutty. Sheila had intense mood swings that repeatedly turned violent, the kind that would keep Ronnie up all night, fearing for his life. On one occasion, he was afraid she would kill him with a pair of scissors. My God, this is a guy that was a tough guy.
Yeah.
Like, all the other ones are guys that were like, had issues. This is a tough guy that was in an illegal business, and she's got him fearing for his life.
The fear created distance between them. Sheila began an affair with Sam Williams, her wealthy boss, who was a vice president and an heir of the family business she worked for, Williams and Son Construction. She found the affair new and exciting, and Sheila wanted to be taken care of and wanted to leave Ronnie for Sam. So apparently she left the burger joint, started working over here.
Just wondering, like, didn't she start to get a name around town? Like, didn't the town start to talk about her being like a floozy? Like, you would think would have started to create a name for herself, and then like all the guys would have been like, stay away from old Sheila.
Right?
Because back then in the 70s and 80s, women weren't supposed to be acting that way. That wasn't acceptable behavior.
Mm.
Sam, too, was married and told Sheila that he was ready to confront his wife about the affair. But their evaporated when Sam's father found out about their secret, ordered his son to put an end to it, and fired Sheila in the process. She no longer had her escape or a job.
Yeah.
Movie is better than serial killer. That is very true. That is true. They moved to Chattanooga. Oh, that's right. There was a move in there.
Yeah.
Tommy says they moved. Okay, you're right. There was a move. So, yeah, I guess
Yeah, they didn't know about her in Chattanooga.
yeah.
The couple's fighting seemed to worsen, and Sheila caused a scene at the restaurant Ronnie was working at. He was in the back, cooking up burgers and sipping on a beer, his head nodding to tunes playing from the radio and the sizzling sounds of the meat every time they flipped on the griddle. The scene was ruined when Sheila barged into the kitchen, throwing a tantrum.
Man's just trying to enjoy a beer and some good.
Nodding to music, having a good time.
She screamed that he was cheating on her. Accused the other of what you're doing. Got it. Okay. She screamed that he was cheating on her, but Ronnie seemed unfazed. He took a sip of his drink and said he'd sleep with whoever he wanted. I'll show you how bad I want out of this marriage, cried Sheila. She reached for a bottle of red pins from her purse and shook them in front of his face. It looked like a prescription bottle, but he didn't care. Maybe it was just Advil. Say, go take the pills. Whatever.
I'll open it for you.
Good night. Have a good rest.
Popping the cap off, she swallowed every single one. The pills went down smoothly and she stormed off. She got into her car, slamming the door, and drove away. The roads looked like they came from an abstract painting. Everything seemed to blur together, and Sheila's eyes were open, but she wasn't awake. She crashed the car and was found unconscious.
Why didn't she just divorce him? Like, what was. I'm so confused. Why is she yelling at him instead of just going file divorce papers?
Mm-hmm.
Her sister Lynn rushed to the hospital to see if she had survived the crash. She watched as a group of medical professionals pumped red bile out of Sheila's stomach. The fragments of pills poured into a bucket. Sheila was alive, but comatose. A day later, Sheila was transferred to the hospital at the University of Alabama at Birmingham to be seen by a specialist. Now, let me be honest. I'm not saying anybody should swallow a bottle of pills. I just don't understand why she's saying, I'll show you how bad I want to be out of this marriage, and then swallowing a bottle of pills. Like, go to the courthouse, file the paperwork. Why are you yelling at him and taking a bottle of pills? Like, stuff doesn't add up. Other than, like, attention grabber.
Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, I lost you for a minute.
Okay. Is it on your screen yet?
Yeah. She remained in a coma for 8 days. When Sheila woke up, she found herself in a psychiatric ward for attempted suicide. Her time spent at the neuro ICU was miserable, and she felt out of place. She was surrounded by people with serious mental illness, and Sheila didn't see herself that way. She called her sister up crying, begging Lynn to get her out of this horrible place.
Bet she don't throw a tantrum like that again.
Yeah.
She told her that a staff member tried to R her and she was forced to defend herself. She also told Lynn about a strange out-of-body experience. She was floating down the hallway and men in white were waiting for her at the end. She reached a blinding light and all was calm. She wasn't meant to be there yet, and the men sent Sheila back to find her purpose.
After 30 days, Sheila was released from the psychiatric ward. Despite the fact Sheila believed she was in good mental health, her husband disagreed. Ronnie called her unbalanced. After a 4-year roller coaster, Ronnie had enough and called off the marriage.
The other patients probably weren't too happy about being in there with her either, right?
Yeah.
Sheila's neighbor recalls Sheila's dating strategies. Nearly 20 years later, Bruce Allen, Sheila's neighbor, recalled seeing numerous men on the farm, often under the auspicious of being workers. They came and went in a cycle of love bombing and abuse. She particularly sought out the vulnerable ones she could control through intimidation and fear. Hey, Shago.
In 2004, she was accused of stalking her neighbor, Bruce Allen, after he refused her offer of an evening of alcohol, drugs, and sex. She followed him into the woods twice and threatened him with her rifle. Fortunately, he was never hurt, but he was left traumatized.
You know, this is the story you often hear from a woman's point of view. Like a man doing this to multiple different women and treating women this way. You hear this, and you don't hear it that often from the men that are being treated this way from women. But men often are treated this way by women. They just don't speak up about it. And
Yeah.
the reason we're going to hear this is because she's a serial killer that did this to men. You know, it's taking her actually going ahead and killing people to get these men's stories out there. But like, men go through this abuse too, where women will seek out more vulnerable men and abuse them. And it just makes me sad that it's taking this woman killing these men, a certain amount of men, for it to come to light that men are being treated this way. Shako said her husband disagreed. Needs to be on a shirt. True. That's the thing with abuse. It can go both ways, men or women
Mm-hmm.
can be abused. Beautiful property, though.
Oh, yeah.
Sheila needed to find men who would say yes. She told me how she picked out ones she liked and would bring them home, said Bruce, in regards to how she chose men, similar to adopting a dog. Disgusting.
Sheila didn't take the usual dating route to meet new men. Sheila made attempts to seduce the delivery men that came to her door. She would bat her eyes at them, sometimes wearing nothing but a fur coat.
That's a good point. Look at Johnny Depp. So Johnny Depp grew up being abused by his mother, and then got into a relation. He got into some very stable relationships, but then was easily abused by Amber Heard because, you know, all it took was one woman taking advantage of him. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Did you all see that she just recently got caught abusing a female partner?
No.
She was in a hotel and she was beating the crap out of her female partner that she's dating in the hotel, and it's been caught on camera. She dragged that female partner. The female partner got out into the hallway, and she went out in the hallway and was dragging her back in the room, and it was caught on camera.
Mm.
Yeah. So she just recently got caught physically abusing somebody else.
You need to put her away.
Yeah, something needs to be done with her. She's
Yeah.
Hey, Nomadic Hippie, driving still. Sorry, no problem. Thank you for being here and listening. Nomadic Hippie, how dare you be driving during this live? You pull over immediately. Tommy Travels. All right, let's play. When companies stopped delivering to her home, she would go after the handyman or the plumber on a service call. She sought men out at homeless shelters or off the street. The most vulnerable of men.
Mm-hmm. She would dangle the carrot of living on a sprawling house farm in the countryside, a welcome from aristeries. I can't say that word either. And crowded government housing or the brutal living conditions of the homeless, who are constantly shuffled between different urban nooks and crannies. Did you get all that? I know I messed up a lot of words.
Sheila was a routine visitor of Telemates, a telephone dating service where callers would create a voicemail describing themselves. Hopeful strangers would leave a message for the singles they liked. Shako said, this woman really gave off bad vibes if the winos refused her. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Seriously. It sounds like she got her pickup plans from a porn movie.
Never know. Sheila received numerous messages from assertive and persistent men who desired her, but she ignored those messages and waited for the lonesome and desperate. Long nights were spent engaging in phone sex with hopeful strangers, and one of those men was Kenneth Countie.
Did you imagine a hot Wisconsin woman in a fur coat and nothing else on and a bucket in her hand batting her eyes at you? My dreams. Nomadic could be. When Sheila met Kenneth, he was up late at night watching television in January of 2006 when a commercial popped up. The cure to feeling single and alone. Telemates. The service would pair him up with a woman to shower him with affection. It was an opportunity to confide in somebody. Delivery boy turns her down. She comes to the door with a tight Save the Whales softball shirt. So I don't know if you all caught it, but the delivery services stopped delivering to her because of how aggressive she was being with the delivery services. So the only people that she was getting to come out to the house at that point was repair people to like work on her plumbing or her house. The delivery services stopped coming out because of how creepy she was being. Like, that's sad.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
Even just wearing a fur coat, they still didn't want to go out there.
Yeah.
He called the number and Sheila was on the other end. She chatted him up. They engaged in explicit sexual conversations. Kenneth was hooked on Sheila and she on him. Kenneth and Sheila planned to meet on February 14th, 2006, Valentine's Day.
Linda Barker said, oh boy. She looks so different in all these, I don't know, these pictures creep me out of her.
Yeah.
Like, that is a highly edited picture. Highly. I don't know. All right. Their first date would be at the Ashworth by the Sea Hotel in Hampton, New Hampshire. A small and charming hotel that overlooks the beach. It was a popular background for newlyweds' photos. Kenneth arrived promptly and sat patiently at the bar. Sheila would arrive any minute.
The room was decorated with pink and red hearts. Love was in the air. Hours passed waiting at the bar. And Kenneth would have left by then and would never have met Sheila. But just as hope was all but extinguished, she arrived.
She made him wait hours?
Hours.
Oh. Sheila was a force. She was assertive and charming. Kenneth had hardly spoken to girls, and no girl had been like Sheila. Kenneth listened while Sheila did most of the talking. They hit it off. They left the hotel to have sex in Sheila's car. She seduced him with the promise of a new life.
And I think Tommy's right. It does look like a glamour shot.
Yeah. I mean, given when these pictures were taken, I guess so, probably. It's very much just highly edited. So, yeah, I guess maybe that's what it is then, a glamour shot.
He boasted to his brother, Brian, about his new girlfriend. He told him that Sheila owned her own company and was rich. She drove around in a fancy car and practically lived in a mansion. 4 days after their first date, Kenneth left his home in Wellington, Massachusetts. He told his roommate that he would only be gone for the weekend.
Airbrushed. It's an idea too. He was worried when Kenneth didn't come home. It was unusual for Kenneth to leave for so long. His roommate and his brother called him up, asking when he'd be back, but Kenneth couldn't give them a clear answer.
And Sheila grabbed the phone from Kenneth and began arguing with the two men. She wanted them to stop calling her new boyfriend. That was the last time his roommate saw him. And on the 21st of February, Kenneth's next workday at the car wash, he didn't show.
On the day Kenneth told his roommate he was leaving, Sheila was parked outside of his home. She was ready to take him away from his life in Massachusetts. Sheila promised him a fresh start, a new job, togetherness, bliss, and even a new name, Adam Olympian LaBarre. But her promises were just a mirage.
Suspicion raised. Epping PD looking for Kenneth. A month after the initial wellness check on March 22nd, Sergeant Sean Gallagher answered the department's phone to Kenneth's panicked mother. Sheila had told her that Kenneth left the farm on his own, that she hadn't seen him in a few days, but Kenneth was not someone who would take care of himself.
Hello, Box Fan D. How are you doing? It's nice to see you in here. Hope all is going well.
Yep.
He had a mental capacity of a 12-year-old, and if Kenneth were alone, he would have called his family. His mom was alarmed. Sean called Sheila repeatedly, but there was no answer. He left messages, but there was no response. Aww.
Yeah.
Again, this is a kid that, a man, but a man that has the brain capacity of a 12-year-old, mental capacity of a 12-year-old, and had worked so hard. It just breaks my heart.
2 days later, in the middle of the night, Sean's phone rang. It was Sheila, assuring him that Kenneth no longer lived with her. After that, Sean could hear the white noise of a tape recorder, and Sheila's recorded voice came through the line. It sounded eerie, distant, and a matter of fact, it began with the strangest pronouncement that she was a, quote, justice of the peace in New Hampshire.
Okay, that's weird. Hitch up and toe. I think Sheila is up to no good. You think? Just maybe.
Just a little bit.
Just maybe. I'm good. Getting ready for my big stream in an hour. Just wanted to come by and see what you guys were up to and show some love. Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you.
We will put a link in here and send everybody over when we're done. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Yeah.
I know these things scare you a bit, so I really appreciate you coming in. Then there was a pause, and the voice changed as if it were coming from a larger, hollow space and pointed at someone. Sheila's voice was then accusatory. There it was. There it was. I found it.
Yeah.
Sheila's voice was then accusatory, and she asked questions about R-ing children. Sean had to listen hard, but just over the static. He could make out Kenneth's soft, muddled voice responding with a yes to each of her questions.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't right.
No. Sheila listed the names of Kenneth's family members. Kenneth confessed to our nieces, step siblings, and other young relatives. Again, he let out a soft yes. When Sheila asked if he molested them, then a kind of frightening, heaving sound began, like an animal in stress.
Oh, you're fine, Box Fendi. You're fine. I absolutely love you. You know that. I don't feel guilty at all. Okay.
And if
Sorry.
you like, BB, on the next segment, I do have um, this recording.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I want to hear that. You all want to hear that too, right? The recording?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be interesting to listen to.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, I had to get up. Couldn't tell if it's my dog whining or the cat. It's the dog. I thought maybe the cat needed in because cat's bathroom. I have a foster cat. Sorry, everyone. A cat that looks just like Hippie's cat.
Cat, meet cat.
Cat, cat. Sheila could be heard shushing Kenneth like an abusive mother, telling him to cut the act. For a long moment, there was quiet on the tape, except for the white noise. Again, more strange sounds. Guttural coughing and gagging filled the silence. Oh. He does have one of those smiles that lights up a room.
Yeah. That's when Sheila began speaking again in a sing-songy third-person narration. Kenneth Countie is now faking that he's throwing up, she said, followed by Kenneth Countie is now faking that he fainted. Sheila then broke the narration by crying hysterically on the tape, at one point wailing, "Why?" over and over again.
It's so strange. Then more silence. After that, the tape abruptly ended, and Sheila hung up on the officer. Sean was disturbed, to put it mildly. Nothing about the call made any sense. Why did Sheila call out of the blue like this, waking him at 1 a.m. to play a recording of herself implicating Kenneth in a string of sex crimes against his family?
Sean and Richard went back to Sheila's farm the next evening searching for answers. They were checking to see if Kenneth had actually left her residence. They arrived to find the gate closed, the sun had already set, and the lights were off in the quiet farmhouse.
The detective spotted a burnt mattress as well as a separate burn pile in Sheila's front yard. A wooden chair faced the burn pits. Sean shined his flashlight over the burn pile. There, resting in the pile, was a knife handle with a melted blade. Tree limb clippers, a burnt chair, but most chilling of all, a piece of bone covered in flesh. Oh,
It was stomach turning. If this bone belonged to Kenneth, could he have done something more to stop it? Had he seen Kenneth badly beaten inside that Walmart, could have done something then? Yeah, you're muted.
yes, sir. Yes, sir, you could have. Sean called for assistance. He knocked on the front door to confront Sheila as a third officer arrived. They began banging on all sides of the house, but still no one answered. Sean kicked in the front door as Sheila arrived from behind the gate.
Again, she insisted that Kenneth wasn't there, that he had left a while ago. Sheila happily gave the men a tour of her home. They looked around, checking every room for signs of Kenneth. All they found were a pair of his sneakers that she refused to let them take.
The tour was over, and they went outside. This left Richard to ask her about the bone. It could have easily been the bone of an animal. She had horses and hundreds of rabbits running around her farm. Agitated, she answered, either a rabbit or a pedophile.
The officers were puzzled by the comment, and Sean asked why the bone would come from a pedophile, but Sheila denied ever making such a remark. She asked the officers to leave, and they had no choice but to comply. The morning after, they obtained a search warrant and returned to Sheila's farm.
On March 25th, Sheila was questioned about Kenneth's whereabouts. She responded, did I skip a page? I don't think I did, but let me check.
So.
No, I didn't.
No.
Okay. On March 25th, Sheila was questioned about Kenneth's whereabouts. She responded, in the bag. Police scoured the burn piles looking for any evidence to examine.
Sheila, in the bag. He's over there. Hidden underneath the pile of ash and dirt was a wrinkled Walmart bag, perhaps the one Sheila was referencing. Police also asked if it was possible that she burned Kenneth, and she said there was a chance that he might have fallen in the fire.
Oh, yeah, he fell in the fire and just stayed there while burning. Come on now. Sheila was probably flirting with cops. Probably.
Yeah.
Sheila flees New Hampshire. Investigators, though confident they had the right person, did not yet have enough evidence to charge Sheila with the murder of Kenneth. In the meantime, Sheila fled Epping.
On March 26, Sheila watched customers go in and out of a local pet store. She stood in front of her car with 3 of her rabbits in a box. Sheila seemed to be waiting for a reason to go inside, and she waited until a pair of children walked into the store, and she followed them.
Brother and sister Donald and Amy walked around the shop looking for a pet to take home. Sheila approached the two with one of her rabbits. The kids were immediately taken by the fluffy creature, which made Sheila's pitch easy.
She offered them $100 to take care of her rabbits, Little Satan, Sapphire, and Snookster. Donald and Amy didn't even hesitate. They asked Sheila to show them the other bunnies, so she guided them out to her car. The children were overjoyed that they would be bringing not one, but 3 pets home.
Sheila knew it would be a lot for them to carry on their walk home, so she offered the pair a ride. Pam Paquin was surprised to see her children come home with 3 rabbits and a new friend. She was initially on guard. She didn't know this woman who had been driving around with her kids. Yeah, I'd be beating somebody's ass having my kids in their car.
And Sheila introduced herself, explaining that she had given Donald and Amy money to take her rabbits and brought them dinner. Pam relaxed. Sheila seemed generous, and as they talked more, the conversation flowed. Sheila was charming and chatty.
Sheila told them stories about her bad relationships and why she had to leave her last boyfriend. The family enjoyed Sheila's company and asked her to stay for a while. The 4 gathered in the living room to watch TV. Pam put on the evening news. Shako said, Snookster is my fave. These cops are terrible.
Sheila panicked and screamed, Adam! The broadcast was on, Kenneth. The news anchor spoke of, I'm sorry, it's a little blurry. The news anchor spoke of a missing man who had been living on a farm in Epping, owned by one Sheila LaBarre. Pam was suddenly stunned and afraid. Who was this stranger in her home?
The anchor continued saying, although the farm wasn't yet considered a crime scene, investigators were searching for evidence. Pam asked her about the report. Who was Adam? Sheila avoided the question and began crying.
Pam asked again. I don't know who he is, Sheila let out. And now everyone, I don't know where he is, Sheila let out. And now everyone's going to think I killed him. Sheila admitted to Pam that Adam was her boyfriend and that he changed his name after he moved in with her because he wanted a fresh start.
Imagine having to leave your boyfriend because you killed him.
Yeah.
Sheila told her how sick Adam was, that he was molested by his mom as a kid and was a pedophile himself. After Sheila said she had discovered this, they started having issues and he packed his stuff and left. Sheila insisted she had nothing to do with Adam's disappearance, and Pam believed her.
The following day, Pam and Sandra, a friend who was staying at the house, drove Sheila to the law office of an attorney. She was on edge about the Kenneth situation and figured seeking legal help would ease her anxiety. The 2 friends waited in the car while Sheila met with the lawyer.
This is so funny. I was just talking about this earlier. Nomadic Hippie. Hippie says, as lazy as I am in naming animals, if I had a rabbit, I would just name it Rabbit. So I have a foster cat that is black like Hippie's cat, has green eyes like Hippie's cat, is small like Hippie's cat, and is also named Cat like Hippie's cat. Imagine that. I guess we're both lazy. He walked Sheila through her options, explaining that there was a possibility of bail depending on the murder charge. They wanted $60,000 to take her case. Sheila stormed out of the building, frantic and in a rush to find a bank.
She refused to pay that much money for an attorney and began to feel paranoid about her finances. In Sheila's mind, she was innocent. This was always set up by the police, and no money hungry attorney was going to fleece her.
If I had a frog, I would name it Ribbit. Sheila took out $85,778.21 from the bank, $50,000 in a cashier's check, and the rest in cash. Her hands were shaking as she put the money away. One of the bank tellers had picked up the phone, and still on edge, Sheila assumed they were calling the police.
Sheila got in the car and told Pam to drive fast. Even though Pam had only known Sheila for a day, she obeyed Sheila's orders. They headed towards Raymond, New Hampshire. In the car, Sheila began sobbing about her horses. She didn't know who would take care of them and believed the police would just let them die.
She needed to go back to her farm. The woman tried to comfort her, saying the police would feed them. Before returning to Epping, they pulled into a bank looking for a notary. Sheila felt she needed to get her ducks in order if anything were to happen to her the next few days.
She wrote that Sandra would manage and collect rent for her 3 apartments in Somersworth. While at the bank, Sheila wrote out a bill of sale for the horses to present to Pam. The 3 women drove down the winding roads that led to Sheila's farm.
Pam and Sandra had fantasized about what Sheila's farm looked like from the stories she had told them. They envisioned her horses galloping across fresh-cut grass. The rabbits would hop around in the front of this grand home neither Pam nor Sandra could ever afford.
They couldn't wait to reach the top and be welcomed by the iron gates. But this farm was something out of a Tim Burton movie. The home was surrounded by dirt, and any visible patches of greenery were yellow. The rabbits hopped around, but they were covered in mud and looked unfed. Like a Stephen King movie.
The gate was wonky and covered in yellow tape. This is how Sheila had actually lived. Sheila watched from the passenger seat as a dozen police officers searched her farm. As she looked, a trailer with her 5 caramel-colored horses drove slowly past.
She shrieked, "Those are my horses!" Pam got out of the car and ran after the trailer. It stopped and a man stepped out. Pam told the man the horses were hers. The man asked if her name was Sheila LaBarre, but Pam shook her head and showed the bill of sale.
The man told her she couldn't have them because the horses had been seized by the police. Pam went back to the car and told Sheila that they had to go to the police station in order to retrieve her horses, and Sheila forced Pam and Sandra to go with her. In order to retrieve her horses, and Sheila forced Pam and Sandra to go without her. Again, I was reading it correctly. My brain is just telling me no.
As soon as the women got back into the car, the man who spoke to Pam called Epping's dispatch. He reported the silver car was on its way to the police station and gave the operators the woman's license plate number.
Thin Blue Lane wants to know, was it a human bone?
Mm.
Pam and Sandra dropped Sheila off at a cemetery where he could hide behind tombstones. Where she could hide behind tombstones. They figured no one would look for Sheila in the dark and gloomy graveyard. In the late afternoon of March 28th, Pam and Sandra pulled into the parking lot of the police station. So Thin Blue Lane, this is going to be a 3-part series again. And this is all going to surround Sheila and everything that she has done. So again,
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. This is a crazy story.
The NH State Police Trooper Jill Rocky and Assistant Attorney General Peter Autumn had been expecting the two. When Pam and Sandra walked in, Jill and Peter guided the women into Jill's office. Immediately, Pam asked if she could have her horses back and pulled out the bill of sale.
I'm kind of wondering about the 3 rabbits she took. I'm wondering if they ate like
I was thinking the same
human
thing.
parts, and she's like, I got to take them with me because if they poop out the human parts, then I'll get caught. Like, why did she pick those specific rabbits to take with her? Like, I'm really curious about that.
Yeah.
Out of all the rabbits she had, she picked specific rabbits to take. So that makes me wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Jill just ignored the request and asked questions about Sheila instead. Pam and Sandra told the officer they dropped Sheila off, but they would never tell her where. Jill and Peter looked at them amused. Bunnies are vegetarians. Okay.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. That makes sense, though, because their pellets only carry fiber. I know that much. So that would make sense that they are vegetarians. Got it. Okay. The more you know. Did we read that last one?
Yeah, you just read that one.
Okay, my brain's not working. Police Trooper Jill Rocky.
Peter asked if Sheila thought they would arrest her and explained that they thought she was missing. They just wanted to know if she could help find Kenneth, and Pam and Sandra were surprised by the news. They had been running around all day to help their new friend, and she wasn't in any trouble. One day they needed this woman.
Yeah. Pam inquired about the horses again, and Peter looked at the bill of sale. He told Pam that she could have her horses back in a few weeks. Pam and Sandra left the station elated. They could now tell Sheila that she would get her horses back and she wouldn't be arrested.
Pam and Sandra returned to the cemetery to deliver the good news, but Sheila's reaction was just the opposite of what they expected. She began hyperventilating and asked for Pam keys. She demanded they get in the car.
Y'all just over there making fun of me now for thinking that the rabbits were eating people. It could happen.
I thought the same thing.
Maybe when they were babies, they were introduced to meat, and that's how this serial killer was getting away with it. She was feeding all the meat-eating rabbits her people that she was killing. You never know. I've heard stranger. Like a head in a bucket.
Right?
Sheila drove faster than the speed limit, pushing hard on the accelerator while driving through gravel roads. She was in a hurry to get out of Epping and told the woman the police were trying to trick her. Sheila swerved down Route 27.
Pam and Sandra were confused and frightened by Sheila's behavior because they expected she would agree to meet with the police since she wasn't going to be arrested. And Sheila thought she was in the clear, but a car pulled in front of them, moving slowly.
Oh boy. Another car came behind and boxed them in, forcing Sheila to pull over. 2 officers stepped out of each car. They had been tracking them. Sheila stepped out, and officers searched her body. They found nothing on her and decided to bring her back to the station for questioning.
Sheila was there for 7 hours and was interrogated about Kenneth. I forgot
Countie?
how to say County. But she didn't admit to anything. Without a confession and no evidence against her, the officers had to let her go until they found something that was linked her with Kenneth's disappearance.
This is true. I have seen it one too many times. On April 1st, 2006, 5 days after Sheila was released, she walked by a newspaper stand. On the front page of the paper was her face framed by her blonde hair, her eyes smudged with eyeliner and a smirk on her face. It was her DMV photo, one of the more recent pictures of her.
The headline above the photo read, "Woman wanted in killing, burning." There was now enough evidence to issue an arrest warrant, and Sheila was on the run again.
Dun, dun, dun. To be continued. NH serial killer Sheila LaBarre, Part 2. Part 2 will be next Sunday.
Yep.
So maybe we'll find out about that bone next Sunday.
Yeah. What do you think so far? Yep. Very interesting, right, Sue?
Yeah. We had the town we talked about last time. Now we're talking about just an individual. So I think this is very interesting. I'm loving these series. I think the series are quite interesting and fun to get into, for sure. I don't know how Nette does it, but she tends to find some very interesting topics to cover. So I am very thankful. The state wanted her. That's what he said. The state wanted her. I'm grabbing
Fox Van D.
Fox Van D's link real quick. She was kind of a victim herself of her father's abuse. Yeah, you know what? Nette and I have had quite a few talks about this. You know, when you suffer from abuse as a child, you can do one of 2 things with it. You can choose to go, I'm never going to do that. I'm going to learn from that. And I'm never going to do that because I know the pain that put me through. Or you can use that as an excuse and go on and do bad things with it. You've got a choice there. And I'm often very confused by the people that choose to use an excuse and continue that cycle. I get very confused.
The pain that they went through, I don't understand why they would want to cause pain. You know? That's what's so confusing about it. But yeah, we're just talking about you can go either way. It's hard to fathom when they end up being serial killers, you know.
Yeah, I'm a person that lived through some things as a child, and I chose to go the complete opposite route. But I also have family members that went the route of using it as the excuse. So I don't understand it. I can't wrap my head around it, and I've spent many years trying to figure that out. So I can't grasp it. Linda has a good point, though. Was she equating Kenneth with her father? So is she making these men like the men are the role of her father? It would be interesting.
She is making them to, admit to things that her father did to her, but they've never done. So that kind of justifies her crime, when
Yeah.
she killed him.
I wonder if they have the personality, like the weak, because she's picking out men that were, not as strong-minded, right? So
Yeah,
was her
very
father like that? Just abusive, but not as strong-minded. Was her father that type of personality?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know that. The state must be slow with low self-esteem. The police did a terrible job with this at
Oh
the
my
beginning, for
gosh.
sure.
Yeah.
When you have zero empathy, anything is possible. That's another thing for sure, is people that don't have empathy. Just ask me how I know. Shaco. Just kidding. Yeah, people that don't have empathy, I don't understand that, because I have way too much of it. So you look cute with your hair under your ball. Oh, thank you, Linda Parker.
You do?
I got to go with my daughter to homecoming dress shopping today. So we were running around after I went to the gym. We went and did homecoming, and I just had a busy day. So hat went on today. But all right, so everybody go raid Box Van D and show her some love today for her live. I really appreciate everyone coming in and hanging out with us. Come back next week for part 2. It's going to be interesting. Yeah. I wonder if she beat up kitchen appliances too. No wonder she always needed repairmen.
Hey, that's a good thought.
This is true. She might have even done it on purpose to get some repairmen over there.
Yeah. You never know.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in, everybody. Wishing you all much kindness and much love.
And we're sending love your way. Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.